Hey there, are you thinking about joining the Australian Defence Force? Well, so was I several years ago, and I guess you could say I found out the hard way that not preparing properly for my initial ADF testing would ultimately cost me 2 years of a delay in actually making it through selection and getting the position I wanted. I'm John Ashburton, and the next couple of minutes I'm going to share with you 2 strategies, or 2 steps if you like, to effective preparation to make sure you not only just pass these U-session assessments, but unlock the more rewarding or interesting positions, and maybe even the specific position that you've got in mind. And if you do have a position in mind, don't be fooled by thinking, oh, well, there aren't that many people that want that one, or it may not be that competitive, because it really is determined by a range of factors that vary year to year, depending on what exactly the ADF is looking at recruiting at. And then secondly, what all the applications that are coming through with you, what are people actually looking to do? And so there's a lot of variability, and it could just be there are a lot of people competing for what the ADF is not recruiting for at the moment, right? And that means you've really got to perform well if you want to get a shot at that career. So the first tip is to really understand the distinctions between different types of aptitude tests, because across all range of careers within Australia, there are a lot of people that test applicants with aptitude tests. So with the ADF, we know that it's really split down into 2 categories at the beginning, that you're going to have your general ability assessment and you're going to have your mathematical ability assessment. Yes, there are other assessments that can be brought in, but I'm going to keep it simple to just the 2 that most people will face straight up by way of example. And so the point is that you want to understand, okay, what specifically am I needing to prepare for? And now I need to focus on just those types of questions. So then the second point is, now we understand what we're practicing for, is to practice with really an outcome in mind to improve our results. And this piece is really 2-sided as well. So in order to improve our results as to our actual scores, we need to improve both our ability in terms of our actual aptitude, how do we improve that, and then our ability to actually perform on testing day, because our results really are made up from both what's our ability on the day and what's our ability to perform on the day, right? So just because we know in theory how to answer XYZ questions, if we're not so good in a testing environment, or we get overwhelmed with nerves or stress or anxiety, then we're just going to freeze up at certain questions. We're not going to do very well in testing, and even in later stages like interviews. So how do we do this? Okay, so number 1 of this, how do you improve your ability? Well, it's not just by practicing randomly. You're already practicing specific questions, but what you want to do is make sure that you're practicing with questions that you're getting like very detailed explanations on how to answer similar types of questions, because your practice questions aren't going to be exactly in the exam. So you need to understand how to answer a very similar question when you see it in your exam. So that's the first thing. Focus on exams that give you detailed explanations on how to improve and answer similar questions down the track. And then the second piece, performance, is there's a lot of different aspects to this. However, the one thing I want to give you right here on this video that most people can employ, and it really does help a lot of people, is to make sure your environment best simulates the testing environment, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, for example, I know that a lot of people will study with background noise, whether it just be because that's the environment. Maybe your apartment is on a busy road, there's noise outside, or maybe you've got the TV on in the background, or there's a lot of people in the background. Maybe you like to listen to music while you're practicing. But then when you go and sit the test, and you're sitting there on the computer doing the test, and you're in a silent room and nobody's talking, and you're in this huge building, you've got walls everywhere, you can't even hear any traffic outside, it can create what some people refer to as an overwhelming silence. Now, you may not believe me on this, but some of you may have experienced this, I don't know. But what it means is that you actually get this sort of, what starts to creep in is a little bit of anxiety about, why is it that I practice all this stuff and I just can't bring to the surface what I'm needing? And it's because you've actually started associating these skills with whatever the environment was that you were practicing in. So to make this really simple, if you, for example, have a certain type of music on in the background when you're studying, and now you don't have that music on, well, it's hard for your brain to make those same connections again that you were doing when you were learning all this stuff, because you're missing that stimulus, right? So that's really that's one of the aspects to how to improve your performance, right? And so there are many different layers to this, and that's something that we cover in our more depth programs. But right now, that's really what I want you to take away from this video, video. So remember, you want to identify what it is you want to practice for, okay? Is it that general ability? What are the categories within that? The mathematical ability, what are the categories within that? Make sure we hit on questions that give us detailed explanations on how to answer similar questions, and make sure we control our environment as best as we can to make sure that we have, ultimately a silent area, and maybe even practicing, with computer tests which simulate how the tests are administered on the actual day of U-session assessment. So thanks for watching this quick video. If you'd like to learn more and you'd like to get started with practicing some sample exams designed to prepare you for the exact types of questions that you may face in your ADF testing, then click the button under this video. You can go through and take one of our free sample quizzes. Regardless of whether you're looking to go through for Army, Navy, Air Force, there is a custom sample quiz there for you to help get you started and get you on track to really correct and effective preparation for your U-session exams.